Hello, and you are very welcome to this pit stop for Terramara, a game designed by Virginio Gilli, Flaminia Brasini, Stefano Loperto and Antonio Tinto, coming from Quined Games. It's a 2 to 4 player game taking around 2 hours to play, in which each player is going to be controlling a tribe in northern Italy around 3,500 years ago, looking to collect resources, craft artifacts, gain culture, move along this trade track and have military strength. After 5 rounds, we'll check and see who's got the most victory points, and that will be the winner of the game. On a player's turn, they're going to put one of their action pieces into play in one of the areas on the board or in their own area indeed. Now, there are two different types. There are chieftains and there are explorers, and they've got slightly different placement rules. So for chieftains can go, as any piece can, into any space by themselves and take that action. Any chieftain can also go into a space with an explorer. Now, chieftains can only go into the spaces of this round in this home area or on your hut. You can never put them into the future, which, as you can see, has been done because each of these strips represents one round in the game. When we're done with them, they're going to be flipped over to provide other different sort of action spaces, but chieftains can never go beyond the current round. Finally, what you can never do is have two pieces of the same color in the same action space. That is not allowed. When it comes to explorers, they also can go by themselves into an area to take an action. That's no problem. Also, what you can do is you can put them into the future somewhere in order to take one of these future actions. As I said, the chieftains cannot. Now, the problem with that is only all the pieces that have been put on the current round are going to be returned to us when we flip these over, as I said, to make these new sorts of spaces, plus the workers in the home area or on your hut. If you sent explorers into the future to take actions, they will not come back to you until the end of that round. And in this case, on round 5, this explorer would never come back to me. It'll be stuck there for the rest of the game. The last way in which you can place the explorers is based upon military strength. And if the player, in this case yellow, who's got the highest military, has got more military strength than another player, as they have, they can place their explorer with the explorer, never with a chieftain, but with another explorer. And that will cost them 1 military point, but they will then get to take that action. Okay, you can always place onto your own hut. What can we do with these actions? Well, firstly, you're going to be collecting mostly raw resources and some refined resources. So what's the difference? Well, raw resources are more numerous. You collect them from anywhere on the board. For example, by going here, this player would collect one of these ore and put them in play or next to their hut like that. You can also, as I said, get some refined resources, which will basically flip over and you'll see like that. Now, why do you want these resources? Well, you're going to be using them to buy artifacts, but we're going to need to be able to change these raw resources into refined resources, and there are two ways we can do that. Whenever you go onto your own hut, you can take one raw resource and turn it into a different raw resource, or you can take one of your raw resources and turn it into a refined resource. Okay, refined ones, why are they more important? Because at the end of your turn, no matter what action you've taken, you get the chance to buy one of these artifacts. Now, this is called the culture track, this river down the bottom. There are some actions on the board which have this blue symbol on them that will allow you to move along the culture track. Now, immediately, if you get to any of these bonus spaces, you get to take those bonuses. For example, here I would get another explorer. Down here, it gave me the right to reserve this artifact, meaning that artifact can only be built by myself, but at a risk of points at the end of the game if I don't build it. But then you check when you come in to see where you are on the culture track, and that gives you access to all the artifacts from that space and over to the left. They all require a certain amount of raw resources. For example, if I wish to build this, that's going to cost me 2 ashlar and 1 metal. And I have them available. I simply pay them back into the stock, and this now comes to me. Now, many artifacts have got immediate effects as soon as you buy them with this lightning symbol, and then they all have either an ongoing effect. For example, this makes this particular type of artifact always cost me 1 fewer metal, or they have once per round powers. For example, with this one, I can refine a good once per round by wonking that card. Also, the other chance is that it might give you end game victory points for various things in the game, for example, for having sets of artifacts here. But you collect them and put them into your area, and then you can use them from then on. Now, before I move on to the other stuff you can do, there's one more way in which you can refine artifacts. You get workers, and there's a space up here to collect workers. The workers become more powerful as you go through the game. These are the ones available. They start at level 1, then 2 and 3. And for each level on the worker, you can wonk it, and then you can refine one resource, and you can do that at any time. It's like a bonus action you can take. There are a couple of other tracks and stuff going on here. So we talked about military. There are certain spaces where if you go there, they'll give you this red bonus and you'll move up on the military track. There's also a space up here which is called the raiding space. When you go here for a raid, you check and see what level you're at. Now you have a military track power level, but there's also, it's split into these 4 different levels. From there, you check and see where each of your opponents are. So for yellow here is in this second area and all of his opponents are in the first area. Each opponent will have to give yellow 1 resource for every resource they currently have, and they will choose which ones. So you've got a raid area available to you up there. It's just a normal action space. There's a couple more types of actions you can take in the game. Any player who goes here will become the start player. They'll get a bonus movement on the cart track over there, which we're about to get to. Second player gets nothing. Third will get a culture move, and 4 will get 2 military points, and that card will go to them. Apart from in the 5th round, it's just worth a slight bonus when you get there, because there's no point being first player in the 6th round. There isn't one. The other thing you can do in the game is you can take these wheel moves. Now those are cart moves up there, and you have 2 wagons. And the way you move your wagons, you can do it in different ways. You can, if you want to, zoom straight down, straight through the middle and not take any supplementary actions. When a cart comes down here, the first one is going to score that player 8 points. The second one, it could be the same player, will score 5 points, and each subsequent one to make it to the end will be worth 3 points. And you can get bonuses for doing that down here via these artifacts. However, when you're moving, you can also take diversions. There are these bonus tiles, and you can move across here to take any of these bonus tiles, and they are seeded throughout the course of, well, for each game rather, so they will be different for every game that you play. Now, the other thing about movement is these 2 extra spaces that we were talking about over here. So if I clear off these workers, as we would at the end of round 2, and I flip both these boards over. Now, one thing to note is you play with 12 boards. These boards are seeded according to what round they're for, but you play with 12 of them out of the 24 available in the game. So again, these spaces will always be slightly different in the games that you play. This opens up 2 different action spaces. The one on the right is a powerful action space, but you can only take that if both of your wagons have reached the crossroads which links into here. So in this case, only blue is valid to take this action. In this case, you get to refine loads of materials. So that might be a reason for moving your second wagon along. The final space on that wagon track is, if you divert across to here as you're moving along into this outpost space, you can take one of your flags and put it in there. And that's going to make you eligible for the end game scoring condition according to whatever the outpost is. For the top one here, it's for moving your way along the culture track. For this one here, it's for military power. And again, these are different for each one, so you're going to get different scoring available to you. So during the course of the 5 rounds, you're going to lay out your explorers and chieftains using your hut, using the home area. You're going to take back only the ones that are on the current round or in those home areas. You're going to flip these over, move on, collect your workers, refine your goods, get your artifacts until at the end of the 5th round, we are going to count up the scores. Now, certain actions during the game are going to get you victory points. So you'll collect those via tokens. Also, each of your artifacts is worth a certain number of points as listed on them. Then these artifacts with end game scoring conditions, you're going to add them up to your score. Moving onwards, whoever is furthest up in the military track is going to score 8, then 5 and 2 for being 2nd and 3rd. You're then going to score for those wagons that have made it all the way to the bottom of the track, as explained earlier. You're going to check all these outpost scoring to see how you've done. If you've got your flag in there, then you're eligible to score some points, depending upon how well you've done in another aspect of the game. I mentioned the reserve in these artifacts. You can only ever keep 1 reserved artifact. You must be past this space in the culture track to do it. If you haven't built your reserved artifact by the end of the game, that's going to cost you 5 points. Finally, each of your raw goods you have left is worth half a point. Each of your refined goods is worth 1 point. Once you've added all that together, the player with the most points is going to be the winner of Terramara. I have got one more thing to mention, as well as all the other things that I said are varied in the game. Once everyone's used to the game at the beginning, in the basic game you start with the same basic resources, but once you all know it, you get to do a draft. Now you do a draft of starting resource cards, which will give you certain ways in which you can go, more culture, more military, more raw goods. You also get a draft of these leader cards. Now they come to you with a certain power on them, and from the 2nd round onwards, at the beginning of the round, you may choose to mature your leader and flip them over to take their mature power from that point onwards in the game. So that's another thing that's going to change things up and possibly give you a direction you might want to go in once you get used to playing the game off Terramara. This has been a Game Pit Stop. For more videos like this, check out our YouTube channel. For more in-depth coverage of gaming, please check out the Game Pit podcast. Thank you.